owning an AR-15. I'm going to play it and then we'll be right back.
So how are gun owners and gun enthusiasts feeling about all of the talk of new gun policy? I sat down with a panel of gun owners from Florida, Alabama, Connecticut, Arizona, and New York. 3 of them say they are now having second thoughts about their own weapons in light of the massacre in Parkland, Florida. So here's part 1 of our conversation. How many of you felt after the Parkland shooting that something was going to change, that Parkland was a tipping point? Show of hands. Why did you feel this time was different?
This time because the kids, the children from the school, have been so front and center and so active that it just gave a little bit of a different feeling, especially because they're the next generation and they're speaking up. Not that I agree with what they're pushing, but I think the use of social media and the snowball effect from what they've been able to do in this past week is entirely different from any of the previous incidents.
People have had enough. It's really that simple. I think sentiment is changing. I said the first day that there was going to be a tipping point at this point. We've just had enough of this constant carnage. And the question becomes, why do we not do something about it? It's really that simple. Why?
I think that we're having a really hard time focusing in on what the real issues are. And we all want this to stop. And we all want a fix, you know? But the fix isn't banning guns. The fix is much deeper than that.
Well, let's just take a vote right here. How many people would be comfortable with an assault weapons ban? Show of hands. 2 of you. Okay, why not?
I don't think there needs to be a ban. There needs to be modifications to the weapons, limitations to the weapons.
Meaning not high magazine capacity?
Correct. An AR-15 should not be used as a home protection weapon.
Why not?
Welcome to 1984.
Do you know what a fabulous gun that is for women?
It is a fabulous gun. So is a shotgun.
Yeah, shotgun's actually a much
woman,
better weapon.
No, but it's much harder to handle. Not
You don't have
for a
to.
woman, but
Your
for a
accuracy
woman.
doesn't.
Hold on, let them debate.
No, I already stopped it. So what'd you say?
I said I don't think what kind of gun it is matters. If you're going to shoot, you're going to shoot. If you have a gun that's holding 25 bullets, that gives you 25 shots. If you have a baby 9, you have 6.
She said a baby 9.
I mean, you know,
like she knows what a baby 9 is.
a 9mm. I'm sorry.
So you don't think?
I am not saying that. I think there should be a mental health evaluation, absolutely, no matter what kind of gun it is. Even for a BB gun, there should be.
But they already have background checks.
No, not a background check, a mental health check.
Like
I think
how?
if you go to a Shepherd Pratt or a mental institution and you are claimed bipolar, schizophrenic, manic depressive, anything of that sort, it should go directly into a file that anywhere you try to buy a gun from can see.
So you're saying gun stores should just have a huge file of crazy people? How they gonna keep track of that?
How they keep track of people with criminal records.
The police keep track of that, not the gun sellers.
And mental institutions keep track of mentally ill people.
Okay, but how are you gonna tell each store that sells guns that?
How
are they gonna know that?
They look up background checks. It takes another 20 seconds to look up a mentally ill check.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to hear your point on that. So you don't think we should ban guns?
No, I don't.
I don't think we should ban guns either. I don't even think certain guns should be banned. I think that people need to stop fighting against Congress and against the White House on what they're going to do about guns. It's not about what the White House is going to do about guns. We have technology now, today, where these companies could spend more money to make sure that only a certain person who buys a gun can shoot that gun. You could have
Yes.
We have drones that can fly all over the world today. You're telling me you can't put a scanner or a fingerprint thing on a gun that makes sure whoever bought that gun is the only person who could fire that gun? I think people need to start realizing that it's not about the White House and making them do something, because obviously they're not doing nothing. If you want, take all your people that you can get together and march them down to a gun warehouse that manufacture them, wherever they're at. March them down there. And look, I'm not saying do this, just by the way, in case people start getting in an uprising and then I get blamed for it. What I'm saying is, if people want to make a change against guns, go to the gun owner. Not the gun owners, the gun manufacturers. Go to the gun manufacturers and tell them they need to manufacture guns that are safer. They need to make proper ways on how ammunition will be distributed and how to identify that ammunition. I just don't understand the thought of going to the White House. The White House is like a middle guy between the gun owner and the person who sells the gun.
Saffron Blue, real quick, I just wanted to say I completely agree. My father was shot with a shotgun, and I think that was way more devastating than somebody with a semi-automatic who can maybe hit you with 2 bullets versus 1 blow with a shotgun that can blow your chest completely out. I agree with you completely on that.
What do you think would infringe upon our rights? You think putting a scanner on a gun or something that could identify whoever bought the gun? I'm just saying, put something on a gun that makes it only be able to be shot.
Let's put in layman's terms. With your iPhone, you can open your iPhone with your fingerprint. No one else can open your iPhone except you with your fingerprint. His point is, if you're going to get a gun, there could be a little bit more money put into the gun to where you have that background check, they put in a mental health check, and then put your fingerprint on that gun so that even if your child or your cousin or your son or your mother gets a hold of that gun, no one can access to use that weapon without your fingerprint.
But see, the problem with that is the gun manufacturers, people are so manipulated that the gun manufacturers are getting away scot-free here. There's nobody coming out and blaming the gun manufacturer, the person who makes the gun, who thought up the gun, who invented the gun. And look, I'm completely against taking our guns away. I think that's wrong. I'm completely against banning guns.
Make people
This
rebel.
is truth tracker here. What I'm saying is, we have great technology nowadays. You know, there should be better methods to control who's firing a gun and who's buying a gun. Like, if there's a mentally health deranged person that wants to go out and buy a gun, it should pop up right in the gun seller system that, yeah, this person's been there. No. Or even if they put a thumbprint check on a gun or something like that, the gun should be able to read that this person can't fire it. Reading your comments. No banning of guns. Remember, it's not that the government we have to worry about, like conspiracy theories. What we need to worry about is if there's a natural disaster and if we can't defend ourselves.
Ask them, does anyone need an AR-15 and 5,000 rounds of ammo to protect your home? I do believe you cannot buy that many rounds of ammo at one time, but I don't know that.
So
criminals will always have the guns.
Yeah, exactly. If you take guns completely away, people who can get access to guns will always get the guns. So that just makes people look at drugs.
It rebels.
There's a big debate going on. Okay, if they legalize marijuana, watch how much marijuana legalization will change trafficking in America of weed. It'll completely stop.
They made it a ticket for up to 10 grams. So now what does everybody do? Everybody carries at least 10 grams instead of being worried about 1 gram. That's exactly what's going to happen.
But I'm going to keep playing this video on CNN. This was a debate video.
Kathleen, you're funny.
I'm going to keep playing this for you guys. Hold on.
That's a
fallacy.
To hear a pump-action shotgun go, most people will
That's a
leave.
fallacy.
You also don't need home protection. You don't need guns for home protection. The probability that you'll be involved in a gun-related crime is 0.003%.
Did I sound like Trump there?
Did this lady just say you don't need guns for home protection? Oh my God.
Oh my Lord.
And she's on CNN.
We agree on this, man.
Oh my God. She just said you don't need guns for home protection. Look, I got a samurai sword. Let someone come through with a gun and I'm just going to samurai chop them.
Or we're just going to do like Kathleen and make our own.
All right, let me me
That's
play the video
insane.
again.
That is insane. She
Saying, I
must
have
be
somebody
mentally
breaking into
ill.
my home. I need a means of self-defense, whether that's a handgun, whether that's an AR-15. That should be my choice. And frankly, I think the law allows that choice.
If they banned AR-15s, you could still defend yourself with your handgun.
I could.
Possibly.
And a shotgun.
You guys are missing the key point
Yeah,
here.
what
This
is
is
it?
a Second Amendment right.
We're
This
not
is our
taking
con-
away your
The
guns.
AR-15.
Let me finish, please.
sorry.
Let me finish, please. This is a constitutionally protected right.
See, now watch. I know the point they're going to make before they're even about to make it. So the next point will be made is that was written into the Constitution in a whole different era than today. It doesn't matter. We have to keep together. We have to keep together what we formed back when the Constitution was wrote. That's why this country has stood and been the country it is since it was founded. But getting back to it. What,
You just samurai sword.
not sure you. Exactly. You can't load a samurai sword with 100 rounds. Exactly.
Right. This is not a government legislated privilege, such as driving a car. This is a completely different
Yep,
conversation.
fair enough. But do you think the forefathers meant the AR-15?
I think they meant our protection against a tyrannical government
Thank
and
you.
for our self-protection.
So do you believe, do you
Of
believe
course
that,
they don't know what the guns are, but if you can't start messing with our constitutionally protected rights
Well,
when
we
you
already
start
have.
doing
There
that.
are interpretations, obviously, of what the forefathers meant. I mean, you're not actually allowed to have an automatic weapon.
I know why you want them. I know they make a lot of noise, they shoot a lot of bullets, very macho gun, it's cool looking. I understand why they want them, but nobody can tell.
This guy understands why we want guns, okay? What if Russia invaded us tomorrow and you took away all of our guns? It's not just about what's going on in this country. See, people become so oblivious because our country is an island away from what goes on over there in the Middle East and what goes on over there in Ukraine and in Syria, what's happening now. Just like North Korea, Iran, Russia, China, all those countries are against us right now. What if they mounted an invasion of the United States? Or what if missiles got dropped? What happens to the rest of the survivors who have to scrounge for themselves and survive? What happens? What happens when planes are over top of us and people are dropping out of them? We have to have our guns, people. It's not just about protection here at home. It's about protection from those who are abroad coming and trying to take our country from us. We have to protect our homeland. And that's why the Constitution was wrote. Let me continue the video.
Tell me why you need it.
We don't have to need it. It's a constitutionally protected right. I don't.
Those
not that
kids,
I don't have
those
to
kids
need
need it
it.
to live.
Yeah.
Of course they
not
did.
a
And
But the AR-15 isn't a constitutionally protected right.
It's no different from any other. I
Arms
just
are,
think-
You have the
but
right.
not an AR-15.
And second, an AR-15 shoots the same caliber round as a pistol. That's how stupid people who don't understand guns, like people sitting on the stage, and I don't mean to call them stupid, but they're just not knowledgeable on guns. AR-15 is a semi-automatic gun. It fires 3 shots and then stops. 3 shots. It's semi-automatic, or it's single shot. Just like you saw in the Las Vegas shooting. The reason why he had to have a bump stock put on an AR-15, all a bump stock is imagine a spring in the butt of a gun. Every time it fires, it bounces off the chest and pushes the gun forward. So the trigger finger stays still and the trigger just keeps going off when the gun bounces off your chest.
Okay, 1 minute. Scotty, I want to address you. So I just want to put this out there. If 6 people decided to invade my home where my children are sleeping, I don't want a gun that is only going to shoot 6 shots and I have to cock back and reload. I want something that is going to blast them out of my house, whether it takes 10 or 50,000. I don't care. Whatever it takes to get them out, gone, away from me. No, I do not think I would shoot at a nuclear bomb and expect anything to happen. But if a rush of people come in my house, I'm going to shoot all of them as many times as I possibly can because I have that right to do that.
And it was written into the Constitution.
That is in the Constitution.
And the Constitution should not be changed. And just like the statues that are, being removed all over the South about the Confederate armies. Do you agree with that or disagree with that? Leave a comment. Talk about that in a second.
You have the
Disarm.
right to self-defense,
Yes.
and it's not only a Second Amendment right. You have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and that is all about protecting yourself, protecting your family.
And all those kids have the right to life, and they're dead.
You cannot yell fire in a movie theater, even though we have the right to free speech. And we've already decided that you cannot have an automatic weapon. All right, so all we're talking about is where the line is.
But the line is for military use, and an AR-15 is not a military rifle. It is a regular semi-automatic rifle that looks badass.
What about a
That's what it
what
is.
about
Your
a
life
semi with a bump
change
stock?
any if you didn't own an assault rifle?
Yes.
An AR-15. Would your lifestyle change any?
My lifestyle?
Yeah, would it
no,
change
because
it?
there's
That's
other firearms I would
Exactly.
purchase. But my concern for my country and in the protection of our Second Amendment rights would.
So
And that's scary.
At what point will we have to stand up against our government and use lethal force in the year 2000?
It's happening in Venezuela.
In Venezuela.
There's a million slippery slope arguments that we can use, but let's try to stay in the present. So here's what's being proposed today, okay? Do you support the end of the sales of bump stocks, making bump stocks illegal? Show of hands. 3 of you. Why would you not support an end to bump stocks?
I'm asking you guys that same question. Should we outlaw bump stocks? What do you think? Leave a comment. Now, me, Truth Tracker, do I think we should outlaw stock? That's a tough debate. I'm not really sure. I'm not too up on bump stock, but let me know what you guys think.
Stocks that mowed down 58 people from a window.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
A gun cannot do anything unless someone is operating it.
Thank you.
It is a tool. And if sick people have a mental issue, that is them. It's not the gun.
I could do the
It's an
same thing with my
By
belt.
law, it's not illegal. It's
an accessory.
It's not considered an automatic weapon. You have a bump stock.
And you know what?
How many times has a bump stock been used in a mass shooting?
But why are you comfortable with, why are you defending bump stocks?
Because I think it should be available. I think it should
Why?
be available to
For
those
what?
out there because it's not an issue of the gun itself or the weapon itself.
Right.
It's an issue of the individual behind it.
And which individual would want to use a bump stock?
A crazed individual, right?
Why
Who
not
was going
ban
to a
them?
mass shooting.
Why not ban them?
What does that accomplish, though? What are we going
It
with
keeps those 58 people alive.
Once you start doing that, what's the next accessory?
Right.
Now you're opening up a whole nother thing because it's not a firearm.
Let's keep going through what the solutions are. President Trump is proposing arming teachers, those that are trained and adept. Who's comfortable? Arms up.
If they want to, as a
If
volunteer.
they want to, voluntarily.
Voluntarily.
Okay. Okay.
Voluntarily.
Why aren't you comfortable with that, Amanda?
I mean, I'd feel like
First of all, let me state that CNN is lying right here to your face. Trump never said arm teachers. Trump said that if there are people in the school who have had military training or gun training with a background in guns, then maybe they could be armed inside the school for the school safety. After a full evaluation, those who have been trained, those who have been in the military, police, whatever, that are inside of the school, who already have gun permits and already been fully evaluated, they could have guns possibly in the school. That's what the law is. Trump didn't come out and say, oh, let's arm all the teachers. So first of all, CNN needs to stop lying, and all the headlines on Google need to stop lying about what he said. That is not what he said. Go ahead, you want to speak to him?
I wasn't making the point that I needed to use 1,000 rounds or 100 rounds. I was just simply stating that if people came in my house, maybe I shoot 15 rounds to my ceiling to try to scare them. Maybe I shoot them 3 times, but at least I have that amount of rounds to be secure enough to know that, I'm sorry, but my children are more important to me. Their lives, my life is more important to me than however many rounds I have versus taking a chance that 6 bullets is going to keep all of us safe. That is all that my point was in that. I am not saying that every house should have 1,000 rounds and huge guns and safes and one under their pillow. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm just saying there should be nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do.
But that's all brought up in the court of law. Just like who said it? Right here, Saffron Blue said people have been sent to jail because they shot 6 to 8 shots and were accused of overkill. See, now that's all in a court of law, whether or not the police department is going to come in and investigate whether or not, you know, the person who broke into the house, the homeowner, shot them too many times or brutalized that person too many times. That comes down to self-defense. That's the police department. That has nothing to do with the guns. So don't take something that the police department may need to do better and turn it into the guns. The gun does not get up and walk by itself. I know you guys have seen a bunch of videos on Facebook, all over the internet lately. A gun does not get up and walk itself. How many rounds you buy is bought by whoever the owner of the gun was. So then the owner is responsible for what happens with those rounds. The owner is responsible for what happens with that gun. So let's continue the rest of the video.
I wouldn't really shoot into a ceiling, by the way. I know that that's stupid. It's just what I said.
I could definitely see you shooting into a ceiling.
I would just shoot.
She would
I would
scare.
just shoot.
She would scare me to death if she had a gun. You should see the way she drives. Should we outlaw women drivers? Let's continue the video.
This shouldn't even need to be explained. I think Mr. Trump is way off the mark on this. You don't want to bring more guns into a situation. The answer to solving violence is not more violence.
You were a teacher for 7 years.
The last thing I want is a gun in my classroom. And when you're trying to shoot a shooter that's in the building, you're going to hit kids. Or if the police show up and you're a black teacher holding a gun because you were defending against a shooter, you're going to get shot.
I totally understand what you're saying and that concern, and I know a lot of people have that, you know, but I think
Scotty, yes, I do think that there should be a limit on how many rounds you should own. I cannot say what I think that should be because I have no idea and I'm not trained in that area, but I do think, yes, I don't think that 50,000 rounds is necessary. I think that's extremely excessive, but I do think that there should be some kind of law or some kind of rule on how many rounds you should have.
But I don't support that. I don't think there should be a law against how many rounds you can have. I mean, if the person is evaluated enough, let's think now of people who get like underground bunkers.
That's different. That's not your house.
What do you mean? But say he wanted to stock his underground bunker with thousands of rounds. You're telling him he can't?
That's a separate issue that I would bring up
That's
somewhere
not
else.
a separate issue, though. He's still going to go to the store to stock up his bunker with his 1,000 rounds. So
Then get a license for your bunker.
So maybe it should be that you have to get approved to get more rounds. How about that? So after you buy so many rounds, you must be evaluated. You must give reasons for why you're buying those rounds. But see, now we're creeping into the Constitution again.
And be extremely evaluated for that.
Yeah, but then we're creeping back into the Constitution. They're taking away rights. It's not anyone's. It's his free right to buy as many rounds as he wants, and no one to tell him so. But
Kathleen, I agree. You're right.
Rounds can be more easily than pistols.
Made easier. She meant made.
Oh, okay, I got you. Rounds can be made more easily than pistols.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And rounds are manufactured, I think, in down in Texas, in the Midwest, or on the West Coast over there. I mean, just look back at the Las Vegas shooting. If we talk about that for a second, this guy owned all of these guns, and no one stopped him. How come the police haven't come forward yet and told us how he got all these guns? And where is all the security camera footage from the Las Vegas shooting? I just read online on Google that the people who were involved in the Las Vegas shooting, people who were victims, who lost their lives, are now getting $275,000 each. And I completely love that. I love that they're paying those people what they deserve.
Even though.
But you know where the money's coming from? The money is coming from a GoFundMe page. Well, that GoFundMe page was set up by average everyday citizens to help the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. So how did the money get to where they can actually give each victim $275,000? Now, I'm only talking about the ones who died. But if you look it up, 50% of the donations came from casinos in Las Vegas. I'm almost curious, did the Mandalay Bay funnel money through the GoFundMe? And what's funny about that at the same time is the lawsuits were just about to begin against the casinos and against I forget what it's called. The lawsuit was against MGM, and then it was Live Show or something like that. The lawsuits were just about to begin. So it's going to be interesting over the next couple days to see what happens with all these lawsuits. I wonder if people drop out left and right. Then you'll know it's a setup. Then you'll know that something was going on with the MGM. People were being paid off and money was being funneled in different directions. But I'm going to keep playing this video. Oh, hold on, Tessa wants to tell you something.
There is no way that that man should have been able to get a hold of that many guns whatsoever. If they don't have a simplistic way of, I don't care what state or country you're in, of determining how many guns you have bought, or in your entire, you could be 65 years old. If you bought a gun at 18, it should be documented. You should never be allowed to have that many guns, much less that many assault rifles. Something is wrong with you there. That is a red flag if you need 15 assault rifles, 40 assault rifles.
So what if
insane.
he was stocking a bunker?
Can you guys comment on this bunker thing? Because I'm not really sure how to comment on the bunker thing, because I think there's about, what?
I'm just saying.
Less than 1% of bunkers in America.
I'm just saying you're stepping close to telling us that we need to rewrite the Constitution.
I am not saying that whatsoever.
But that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not.
You're saying that guns should be, you shouldn't be able to own a certain amount of guns or a certain amount of bullets. Correct?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, well, what are you saying? Let me hear it again. I want to hear this. Let me hear that again.
I am saying that after thorough, whatever, when looking at this person's person, whatever, no, you shouldn't be allowed to have that many guns in your house. Nobody needs that. Just like someone said earlier, you don't need 50,000 rounds in your house. If there is a reason that you feel that you need that many rounds or that many guns, that needs to be explained, researched, and I think that should go to someone higher than just a gun store for you to be accepted to have that. That's what I think. I don't think that's crossing the Constitution. I think that is just being very thorough in who you give it to.
I agree, Scott. I agree that I see what she's saying. I think that there should be a point when you're buying ammunition or buying guns. But see, the problem is, just like with Paddock, he went to different gun sellers. He went to different places where he stocked up on all these guns. So there would have to be a system almost like pawn shops. Like pawn shops can pull up whether something is stolen, and how all the pawn shops log into a network and they can see whether or not someone, I guess that's how it works. I've never really worked at a pawn shop, but I know they can pull up whether or not something is stolen, a certain merchandise or something. But it should definitely be a red flag if you're buying too many rounds and too many guns. I definitely agree there should be a red flag.
Agree, we don't want people armed that aren't prepared to do what needs to be done if they have to and don't have the training.
No one can possibly be prepared for a situation where you're firing gunshots around children.
You don't have that right to make that choice for children that are in school when they could be protected by somebody potentially with a gun that has training. You don't have the right to rule over their life and say that they didn't have the opportunity to save those children.
But you're ruling over their lives, saying that we should have AR-15 and allow someone to bring it in.
Incorrect. For
my self-protection or in a classroom, I want anything that's better than what he has. And I want more rounds than whatever he has.
Okay, so here's why a couple of them are so relevant. They're all rethinking.
Okay, so there you go. You saw the CNN debate on this subject. But yet again, CNN lies to your face. CNN tells you that Trump said armed teachers. Incorrect. Trump did not say armed teachers. He said armed qualified individuals. Now, I think we need to talk about the police. Like, recently we just had this Florida shooting. And supposedly, well, you know more about it, don't you, Tess? Supposedly something happened with this cop.
This police officer found out, or saw, or however it may be, knew that the shooting was going on and found a way to manipulate his way to not go inside out of fear for his own life. Now, you take that pledge, you wear that badge, And those people in that school trust that if anything like that is to happen, you are the first one to step in front of that person and try to fight them off with your own gun, knowing that no one else in that school has a gun. That man should be stripped of his badge. He should be absolutely humiliated. That's just my opinion. My brother is a police officer, and I know for a fact that if that was him, he would run into that school to protect those children. And I personally think that if that police officer had a child in that school, he would be the first one to run in that school. There is not one excuse, there is not one debate that can defend that man on not going into that school when that was his job.
All right, so I'm pulling up what you're talking about here. So Florida shooting, armed officer never went in to confront gunman. Is this what you're talking about? Here, I'll play the video.
Yeah, he never went in to confront him because he was too scared.
Let's play the video back.
After seeing video, witness statements, and Scott Peterson's very own statement, I decided this morning to suspend Scott Peterson without pay pending an internal investigation. As is his right, Scott Peterson chose to resign. We're not going to disclose the video at this time, and we may never disclose the video, depending on the prosecution.
So hold on, there's a video of this officer who would enter the school when the shooting was taking place. Do you guys know more about this?
He took cover.
Where did he take cover?
He took cover in the corner of where he was standing.
In the corner of the school? Outside?
No, he was standing outside of the door and took cover in the side of the building in the corner.
So let's look up and see if there's a video of this cop not entering the school. Security footage from school shooting misled cops, report says. So what was the officer's name? Do you remember the officer's name?
No, he just said it, I think.
Let's go back for a second, guys.
They're trying to protect this guy, and I don't get it.
Witness statements.
Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson is the officer. Supposedly this police officer in Florida, Scott Peterson, could have went in to the school. What was it? Was it a high school or a college?
It was a high school.
It was a high school. He could have went into the high school and stopped this shooter from killing, I think, what was it, 17 people?
17 dead.
17 people, and chose not to. He stood outside of the school, so I'm going to try to look him up. Scott Peterson, that's what it was?
Mm-hmm. They're not releasing any videos on him because it would just make America hate him more than they do.
I mean, do you think it's understandable maybe that a person cracked under pressure?
Not with that job title, no.
I mean, but any other time in America, we're screaming that police shoot too quickly. So we have one cop who couldn't act out of fear.
After the shooting started.
After the shooting started, he couldn't act out of fear. But at any other time, we're complaining that officers are acting too quickly and shooting people. So you really think this guy should have been nailed to the wall?
I think this guy, as soon as the fire alarm was pulled before the shooting, he should have walked inside to see what was going on.
But
and when he saw a gun, he should have did exactly what the police are trained to do.
Yeah, but I think the police are trained to wait for backup.
Not if there is a gun pointed at you or somebody in front of you.
I don't know. We'll have to look that up, but let me see.
I know that.
Yeah, Tessa has a brother who's in the Baltimore Police Department. I don't think there's a video of this. Scott Peterson. Let's see. I'll look up other videos. Scott Peterson, Florida. He never went in. Armed deputy did not confront Florida school shooter.
But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in. I think it was upwards. I think he remained outside for upwards of 4 minutes. After seeing video, witness statements, and Scott Peterson's very own statement, I decided this morning to suspend Scott Peterson without pay pending an internal investigation. As is his right, Scott Peterson chose to resign. After being briefed by Internal Affairs, I've restricted 2 of our deputies while we delve further into this, take statements, and make a decision whether or not they could have done more or should have done more. It's a fluid investigation. They are on restrictive duty. Devastated, sick to my stomach. There are no words. I mean, these families lost their children. We lost coaches. I've been to the funerals. I've been to the homes where they sit and shiver. I've been to the vigils. It's just, there are no words.
Now, hold on. I don't think there's much debate on whether this guy was right or wrong. I mean, I guess you could say he cracked under pressure, he got scared. Okay, that's not the job for him then. That's a mistake on that part. But are there any thoughts on, I don't even know what to say about him. What should happen to him now? Nothing? Should he just be, that's just it? He resigned, let it go. 17 kids are dead. God knows how many wounded. All of these people, I'm sure, with PTSD now. And not to say he could have prevented all of that, but he most definitely could have went in and given those kids more time, or maybe shot him down before he killed or hurt all those people, and he'd be looked at as a hero. Right now, he'd be getting all kinds of stuff from Florida. But are there any viewpoints on what should happen to him now? Should he even be known? Should he be more than resigned and suspended? Should he go to jail? I don't understand what people think should happen to him, if anything. I'm just very curious about that. Because students react, and obviously if I was a student there, I think I'd want him to the fullest extent that I could possibly.
Totally disgusted. Shock and anger after this stunning admission from the sheriff's department yesterday.
What I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
Sheriff Scott Israel describing how Scott Peterson, an armed school resource deputy assigned to protect Stoneman Douglas High School, failed to take action. Peterson waiting outside for 4 minutes as the shooting unfolded.
Was he there when the shooter was still inside the building? Yes, he was.
So what should he have done?
Went in, addressed the killer, killed the killer.
Cops know it's their responsibility to go in there, because we all know that in an active shooter situation, in the first couple of seconds, that's when most of the death occurs.
There's so many stories of people who have saved themselves.
Okay, so
because they had a gun, but you never hear of them. Yes, there are.
Okay, so before we nail this guy to the wall, let's look up on Google what the policy is for an active shooter.
He just said it. I mean, you can look up the technical meaning.
Police regulations.
While he does this, let me give an example. My brother, 3 weeks in to being a police officer, they get a phone call at a 7-Eleven. A man has a knife, and he comes outside, and him strictly holding that knife gives them probable cause to pull their gun and tell him to lay it down or to tase him or whatever. They did tase him. He got right back up. As soon as the man turned, the knife was pointed toward a police officer, and he took one step. That man was shot 6 times. Nothing was ever said about it because that is police protocol, and he was coming at them with a weapon. Even though it was a knife, it was pointed at them, and he took a step toward them. It was suicide by cop. The man was very mentally ill, but that is what they are supposed to do. It is your life or theirs. If he got too close, the 27 feet rule. You have 27 feet with a knife where you can actually, I don't know if most of you know this, but there is a 27 feet rule. If you get in within that 27 feet with a gun versus a knife, that knife does have a chance. That's all I'll say.
All right, so what we have here is Parkland officer speaking out following scrutiny for never entering the building during the shooting. Let's hear what he has to say. It's going to play an ad, so keep that off for right this second.
Saffron, I agree.
Is taking safety glasses to a whole new level using augmented reality.
Saffron, I agree.
Engineers in
They
the field
should.
can share
If taxes
data
need to
and
be
get
raised. They're
expert
raised for
backup
food stamps.
in
Why
the
not
blink
raise
of an
them for
eye.
guards at
Because
schools?
safety is never being satisfied and always
To have armed
working
guards
to
at
be
schools.
All right, let's
I'm Kerry Sanders in Parkland, Florida, where 12 days after the massacre, the attorney for armed campus deputy Scott Peterson is speaking out. Peterson under withering criticism for never entering the building as the killing went on inside.
What is he seen doing on the video?
Nothing.
Peterson's attorney now saying his heart goes out to the families of victims in their time of need. However, the allegations that Peterson was a coward are patently untrue. And that Peterson, who resigned last week, took up a tactical position because he thought the shots were coming from outside the building.
Based on his training, his protocols, equipment and tactics, he should have went in and done everything he could possibly have done to neutralize the killer.
Internal affairs investigative sources tell NBC News they believe in the crucial 4 minutes while Peterson was outside, 6 people were gunned down on the 3rd floor of the building. And now the Broward County Sheriff's Office is investigating whether 2 or 3 more deputies arrived and did not go in.
I'm Madeline Wolford.
Also today, an emotional appearance by student Maddie Wilford, hit by 3 bullets in her stomach, chest, and hand. Doctors calling her recovery a miracle.
And I'd just like to say that I'm so grateful to be here, and it wouldn't be possible without those officers and first responders and these amazing doctors.
While students are grateful, some are also anxious about returning to class on Wednesday. Teachers arriving back at their classrooms today, greeted by a rainbow.
Rainbow was there. Rainbow was there for hope.
Tonight, almost every Republican member of the State House of Representatives is called the governor to remove Sheriff Scott Israel from office. Now,
All right, hi, Kimberly. I just want to address this as, it's just a question, okay. I just the other day had a particular situation where I have a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old who were both in school. There was a threat of a gunman. He sent a screenshot of his guns, said he was going in to shoot, and so on and so forth. It was a huge threat, turned out to be a hoax. I went absolutely insane trying to figure out if I should go get my kids out of school or not, even though it wasn't their particular school. I feel like I would have been so much more relieved if I knew that there were guards outside of their school. I am not saying I think that it would be in any way really beneficial to have shooting, like random alerts, like this is a drill in case a shooter comes. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't think there's a problem where in my personal high school, our police officer had an office inside. I think that's great. You have a police officer inside of the school in an office or walking through the halls, and maybe at 2 of the main exits, you have an armed guard that is simply there for a case like that. I don't think it should be extended to where the kids are scared or think that's going to happen or anything like that. But even in that particular situation, I would have felt a lot better knowing or thinking the guards are outside of those doors and nobody could get in, especially knowing that that was going on 10 minutes away from us. So no, I don't think that there should be armed drills and all of that. I just think that armed guards standing outside, absolutely. I think that would be beneficial to anybody.
Now, does this question boil down to deep thoughts of like, are they trying to scare the public to be afraid to come out of their homes? Who is behind these mass shootings? What is causing these mass shootings to suddenly happen? Like we have the Vegas shooting, the Florida shooting, we had the Sandy Hook shooting. What is this doing? What is this doing to the public at large? What it's doing is it's making us scared to come out of our houses. It's making us scared to interact with the public. We already have the internet who keeps people in their houses. People filled with anxiety, you know, social anxiety, can't go out of their houses, can't talk to people. What is happening to us as a public? If you go back to before the internet was developed, before phones were developed. People knocked on each other's doors. People went out to see each other.
And when the lights go off.
And now what do we have today? Today we have a disaster in the making. We have
9-year-olds with cell phones.
We have a disconnect from other people. Kids grow up nowadays and they sit in front of their computers and they sit in front of their televisions. They don't go outside. They don't play baseball anymore unless they're signed up for a sports team. And then if you don't have friendships and it's only sports teams, all you have is discipline. It's a disconnect. Everything's a disconnect nowadays.
Get back on topic.
But yeah, the officer who didn't enter the school at the Florida shooting, I don't truly believe that he should be nailed to the wall. Like, we have all these officers out here who we say are overreacting. Oh, he overreacted. Look how they beat this. And I support some of that. Now we have an officer who was scared to react. Does that make him lose his job?
Then he should be put on highway patrol.
Like, do you really believe that should make him be fired from his job? I don't think so.
Then he shouldn't have taken that oath.
I agree with you, Kimberly. I agree that.
Thank you, Kimberly.
I'm just as mad as you. I'm just as mad as you and everybody else at this guy for not acting when he should have acted. And I'm gonna pull up here in a second. I'm going to let this video continue to play, but I'm going to pull up here in a second what police protocols are. Does anybody in the group know what police protocols are for arriving on a scene of a shooting? Because if we go back to looking at the Las Vegas shooting, how many cops didn't enter certain floors of the Mandalay Bay because they were told to wait for backup? If you listen to the police scanner of the Las Vegas shooting, you can hear the officers saying, I'm waiting on this floor for a team to come up. And they move floor by floor until they get to the top floor.
That's different.
So, how's that different? How's that different?
They were using SWAT team methods with that.
So it's the same thing. It's a mass shooting.
I don't think you can't compare the Las Vegas shooting to the Florida school shooting. That officer was particularly at that school for that reason.
Oh, so you're saying this was the officer who was supposed to be stationed at the school? I didn't see that. Are you sure that's that?
High schools have officers at them. He was not just standing there randomly on a break when a shooter came in. Yes, a high school has a police officer.
So Scott Peterson was stationed
at that school.
Let's look that up. Scott Peterson, Florida, stationed at school.
Kimberly, we can be friends. They earlier said that women cannot drive. I need some backup.
And I was just joking, by the way, when I said that. I was just kidding. I have nothing against women.
My son's downloading too. Slowing it down.
Okay, so school resource deputy stayed outside, according to CNN. Let's read some of this. Let's get to the bottom of this. Armed school resource officer stayed outside as Florida shooting unfolded, sheriff says. The armed school resource deputy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, waited outside the school building as the shooting unfolded last week, officials said. Scott Peterson never went in after taking a position on the west side of the building. Peterson resigned after he was suspended without pay by Israel pending an internal investigation into his actions during the shooting that left 17 people dead, Israel said. Peterson was eligible for retirement. Israel made the decision to suspend Peterson, who was armed and in uniform at the time of the shooting. After interviewing the deputy and reviewing footage and witness statements, he said, What I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side. Now, this is what I'm not understanding. If he was stationed at the school, why is the report saying what people saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12? Take up a position Israel said of the video, and he never went in.
Well, at Parkville High, their officer, once school begins, goes into the tree that is 100 yards away from the school to watch on lookout. The police officer that was stationed at my school used to go under the bridge that was about 100 yards away from our school, and he did that specifically to look for people skipping, to look for people trying to come into the school, and had his car there.
I got a funny story. When I was in high school, we had this cop who had he was a great cop, great police officer, and he was wounded while working in Baltimore County.
But fearless.
That's where we live, and I grew up. He was wounded, so he had to talk through an electronic talk box on his throat that he would have to hit a button on. Well, one time we all knew about him. Just got cut off.
You returned.
Sorry about that, guys. I got cut off. So one day while we were all at school, me and two of my friends decided to skip school. So we walking away from the school down this side street. I know, I was a bad kid. We're walking down this side street, and next thing we know, we hear the police car coming, and we hear him over the radio, "Stop! Don't move!" And
Don't
he
make
was
fun
talking,
of him.
I'm not making fun of him. I'm telling the story. And this guy ran up on us and everything. Like you'd have thought we broke into someone's house or something. We just skipped high school. We were skipping class. So I guess I get where Tessa is coming from a little bit. Because I could imagine if that were to happen at the school I'm talking about and he was there, he'd had his guns drawn. Here in Baltimore, if you get in a fight in school, they use pepper spray. They'll pepper spray you, and then they have to clear out the whole floor. They'll clear out the whole floor where the incident happened, where two students got in a fight. They'll pepper spray the kids and clear out the whole floor because they won't stop.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the cops that are here now at the schools, that are stationed at the schools, are there for school shootings. They are there for anything from fights or bullying or anything, skipping school, people driving too fast, people driving into the school that look suspicious. But they are also there for if someone is to come and try to invade that school with anything, whether it be a bomb, a knife. That is, I believe, the biggest part of their job in that school. And he was a complete and utter coward for not going into that school, because I'm sure he had no problem picking up kids playing hooky or going and taking iPods away or taking iPhones away, acting like Mr. Tough Guy in the lunchroom. I'm not going to say positive. I'm sure that's not how he was. And it's just sad. It's really sad, because if one of my kids was in that school and I heard about how mean their cop was or how nice their cop was, I understand that people get under pressure like that, and at sometimes they freeze. But it doesn't seem like he froze. It seems like he stood there and chose not to go in. He chose, and it's almost like subconsciously he's like, well, I can retire anyway. People are going to hate me and it'll die down. And this is all just my mind. That's not in any way, shape, or form in an article or anything. But it's absolutely ridiculous that he would even keep that job, knowing how America is and how everybody is and how mental illness is here with school shootings. It's just insane to even keep that job with that as a possibility, and you don't go in and try to stop it.
So somebody said, or Kimberly said, did you guys read that they had a don't go in order because of no body cams? Did you hear about that, Tess?
I did not hear about that, and I'm sorry, I don't care. When you take that pledge and somebody's shooting in your school and you have a gun and you know no other child in there does, you go in and you shoot them.
Okay, so what I have...
Nobody would criticize him for doing that. Nobody.
What I have pulled up here is the police response to active shooter incidents, critical issues in policing series. So this is critical issues in policing. I guess that's policing series. The police response to active shooter incidents. So then we're going to scroll down here to the content. So we have on page 16, we have the police response to active shooter incidents and changes in officer training. So let's go to page 16. Page 16.
Go up here.
Hold on 1 second.
The proper response is to take out the shooter ASAP. That's my entire point.
Okay, I'm going to read some of this.
Yes, Kim, I agree.
It says, performance obtain orders regarding active shooters events from dozens of police and sheriff's departments of various sizes. In drafting their policies, some departments have incorporated certain elements from each other's policies or from guidelines offered by state and national policing organizations. I keep getting policing and policies mixed up. Sorry, guys. However, each policy obtained by PERF appeared to be unique, and there were important differences on key points. So, let's see. I'm trying to find out what the policy is when an officer arrives on a scene of an active shooter. Let me see. Solo entry and contact teams. In active shooter situations where an officer arrives at the scene and can hear shooting, screams, or other indications that the perpetrator is actively shooting or threatening victims, some departments' policies explicitly provide that the lone officer can move to stop the threat without waiting for any additional officers to arrive. The shooter may be stopped by arrest, by containment, or by use of deadly force. And some policies note that when an active shooter incident occurs at a school resource officer, okay, here we go, a school resource officer, or SRO, may be the first officer at the scene who must make a decision about whether to respond alone. So this is saying that he could make the decision whether to respond or alone or wait for backup. Other departments require that officers wait until a certain number of officers have arrived, like in Las Vegas, during the Las Vegas shooting. Now, we sit here and debate this subject. If you were that officer, would you go into that school alone?
I wouldn't take that oath if I wouldn't.
I would. I think I would
not take that oath if I would not do that.
Those officers are instructed to form a contact team that responds as a unit with the mission of stopping the shooter and preventing his escape. Some departments' policies recommend a contact team of a certain size, often 4 officers.
Look up how many minutes it was before the fire department got there.
But also specify that fewer officers may respond if it is apparent that a full contact team cannot be assembled quickly. Some of these agencies caution that a smaller team should be deployed only as a last resort. Okay, so what we just seen here is basically it's up to the SRO, the school's resource officer, whether to respond or not respond. So it's in his hands. So you're telling me the sheriff that worked in Florida basically fired? I mean, he got aired out so bad by the sheriff, or that man we just saw who was in control of the Florida Police Department. He got aired out so bad on national TV, the guy had no choice but to quit. But really, it was in that officer's hands on what he thought would be the best plan. Now, if he'd have went in that school, if he'd have went into that school and died, but not have stopped the shooter, then what?
He'd be a hero.
He'd be a hero.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a tough debate, guys.
Thank you. Why would you have a cop stationed at the school if he's going to stay outside?
Yeah, I don't understand why the cop was outside. That's what I was talking about earlier. I don't understand why he was outside. He should have been in the school. I know back in my high school that the cop, I think he sat in the office.
My cop sat in the office half the day. The other half the day walked around to the doors inside and out.
Yeah. So, what did you want me to look up, Tess?
Well, somebody said something about why wasn't the fire department immediately alerted. I wanted to see how many minutes before they came. I believe it was 8 minutes before everybody was there once the fire alarm went off. But don't quote me on that. That's why I asked him to look it up.
Okay, what I can find here is...
I don't know how those parents are not... I don't know how they're staying in their house knowing that cop. I don't know. I don't have that strength.
The best thing I can find is governor orders investigation of response into Florida shooting. Florida Governor Rick Scott on Sunday ordered an investigation into the response to the deadly shooting 2 weeks ago at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School for there to be a full accountability. Scott directed the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to immediately investigate the law enforcement response. According to a statement, amid growing criticism of how the Broward County Sheriff's Office handled the shooting in Parkland on February 14th. In a statement, Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel said his department will fully cooperate with the probe as we believe in fully transparency and accountability. So I'm not seeing...
Okay, well, now I have a separate question, because now I'm thinking, okay, we're talking about this cop. I think most people agree on that. We're talking about, a lot of people have different opinions on that. Now, this cop, what do cops carry? What kind of gun? I mean, they carry just a simple gun on their hip, right?
A 9mm.
A 9mm, something like that. Now, him going in
45.
Against a, AR-15?
AR-15.
Okay, him going in against the AR-15, the odds do not seem in his favor. Does that mean that even if they don't put armed guards at a school, should the police officer stationed at the school, should he have a bigger weapon or a better weapon? Or should they keep it how it is and just hope and pray it doesn't happen again? I think that's a good question, because I think anybody can express their opinion. There is no right or wrong answer. And I don't know. I mean, you have to have an 80%, what's it called? You have to hit the target 80% of the time to even become a police officer. This 19-year-old or 18-year-old, however old he was, I'm not even going to use his name because he ain't worth it, but I'm sure he don't have, I can't say what his percentage was.
What was his name?
Cruz. C-R-U-Z. Nikolas Cruz. I'm very interested into what mental illness he has, because he obviously has one. And they want to try and blame his brother bullying him. Well, guess what? Just about everybody can say they've been bullied at some point in their life. So I don't want to hear anything about bullying.
Did Cruz, did he give a statement yet? Did you hear anything about a statement?
They have his police statement from when they first locked him up, and then they have all the footage from his neighbors of him doing target practice and him just playing with guns and videos and everything he did. All the signs pointing to this man is a psychotic person. This kid is a psychotic person, and nobody did anything.
When you have the lack of impulse control that a 19-year-old has, that affects the behavior that you exhibit. That's the child that I'm sitting across from. He's sad, he's mournful, he's remorseful. He is fully aware of what is going on. And he's just a broken human being.
Does he ask for any messages to be given to the...
So what do you think, Tess? You think it's...
I think he's remorseful because he's in jail.
Do you think it was his surroundings that caused him to walk into a school and shoot people?
No, I think it was his mental illness.
What kind of mental illness?
I didn't look up what kind he had, but there is no such thing as a person without a mental illness that is able to walk into a school.
You don't think a person could be depressed enough to do a
That
shooting?
is a mental illness. Manic depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, being anemic. I'm not anemic, what's the eating disorder?
I think it is.
Bulimic.
Bulimic.
All of them have to do with your mental health. All of them. You can't. Your mental health it's a different person. It's a different person. Now I do not stand up for him in any way, shape, or form, but people that knew him had to know, just like they posted on Facebook, just like they tried to call the cops and they tried to warn people about this boy, and nobody took it seriously. Everybody said, well, we can't do anything because he hasn't done anything, and you can't make him take medicine, and, well, you could have put his ass in a mental institution. I'm sorry, you could have. All you have to do is the neighbor could have showed him doing target practice outside of his back door. That in itself should give enough probable cause to his parents to go in and just say he could be a harm to others and have him evaluated. Something as simple as that.
Okay, so what I'm finding is
he's remorseful.
Henderson behavioral health professionals
chose not to hospitalize him.
Hospitalize him, according to a November 2016 Florida Department of Children and Families investigative report obtained by NBC News. This is it. This article you're seeing on your screen is by NBC News. The department officially released the report Tuesday after NBC News published details from it. An individual had alerted Henderson Behavioral Health to come to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School to evaluate Cruz for a possible detainment under the Baker Act, which allows authorities to hold individuals against their will for up to 72 hours, according to a 2016 report. So what this is saying is Henderson Behavioral Health, I can't say that word for some reason, they tried to get authorities to detain Cruz for at least 72 hours to be evaluated on what was wrong with him. But at the same time, Henderson Behavioral Health didn't accept Cruz.
He had 36 visits in the past year from social services, from police officers, from mental health people, and none of them decided to take him or stop him. None of them. 36. That is almost once a week. That is ridiculous.
So what they're saying is the reason why the Behavioral Health Center alerted authorities to what was going on was because Cruz sent out a Snapchat video in which he cut both of his arms and shared his intention to go out and buy a gun. According to the report noted that Mr. Cruz has fresh cuts on both arms, and that in 2015 he had a Nazi symbol drawn on his book bag and hate signs on a book bag stating, "I hate N-word." We all know what the N-word is. Cruz allegedly killed 17 students and staff members and injured more than a dozen others Wednesday in an attack on Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which he had attended until he was expelled last year. So he didn't even attend the school. He was kicked out of the school. He was kicked out of the school. Linda Cruz, his adopted mother, who died from pneumonia. Okay, so now we see. He was in the adoption system.
Okay. He's in adoption system. His big brother bullied him. Hold
on. Let's see a bit more about his brother. In November 2017, told mental health investigators in 2016 that her son suffered from ADHD. I have ADHD.
Okay.
Bad.
You
and
have
that
ADD.
would not, or I have ADD. Like, I can't stay focused on one subject for a long period of time. I constantly have to be doing something different. But I don't see how that could lead to a shooting, in my opinion. Okay, so ADHD, depression, and autism, but insisted he received his necessary medication as prescribed, according to the report. She told investigators at the time that her son did not own a gun, beyond an air gun that she had taken away when he didn't follow house rules about only shooting it within the backyard at the targets. Okay, so there's been videos on YouTube showing there's been videos coming up on YouTube showing Cruz shooting a gun in his backyard. So that was an aerosol gun then. That wasn't him. So see how the news manipulates things? The news said he was in his backyard shooting and getting ready for the school shooting.
They said target practice.
Target practice. So, I mean, you don't know that, but
him having depression and autism. I can't tell you how many people I know that have blown their own heads off just because of depression. And autism can literally make you go crazy. It can literally do that. The combination of those is deathly.
Okay, so Linda Cruz told investigators that her son had started to cut himself after a breakup, the report said. She also stated that there has never been any issues with other races or issues with racism in her family. Though there had been an account of medical negligence, the report said that Cruz, clinician from Henderson Mental Health, has stated that there are no issues with Cruz's medication, and he has been compliant with taking his medication and keeps all of his appointments.
I don't believe that for a second.
So what do you think? He was selling his medicine?
I think he's putting them under his tongue and spitting them out. Or he's on the wrong medication.
A counselor at the school told the Florida Department of Children and Families investigators that a professional from the mental health facility had visited Cruz and found him to be stable enough to not be hospitalized.
But 36 visits. Come on, 36 visits from different people. They could not possibly all look at him, especially with him being autistic. He can't fake it that good. Something is wrong.
He must have been planning it. He was planning it.
It was completely premeditated. I don't think that's even a debate.
But if it was premeditated, that means he was logical.
He could be logical. He could be logical enough, and he knew how to beat the system because he'd been in the system.
See, because you think about it. If he was trapped in his life situation, he would make everybody believe that he was doing the best he could before he did the worst thing possible, right? That's how you would think he would
Well,
do
he's
it.
supposedly remorseful now, so.
Okay, so is there any way they could have checked his blood alcohol level? Was he a drug addict? What if drugs were involved?
I'm sure they've done that. I'm sure that would be a main point in this.
Maybe that'll be the subject of tomorrow. We'll find out if drugs were involved.
I don't think he's worth talking about.
But found him stable enough to not be hospitalized. The school counselor expressed concern with the department, according to the report, and said she and her staff wanted to ensure that the assessment of Henderson was not premature. Nonetheless, the Florida Department of Children and Families investigation was closed with no indicators to support the allegations of inadequate supervision or medical negligence. Henderson Behavioral Health did not respond to a request for comment to NBC. So, I think we had a good debate so far tonight, guys. I'm going to do this every night, so make sure you stay tuned. Me and Tess are going to talk everything from guns to Syria. I'll probably have some special guests, some friends of mine who also like to debate and talk about different subjects. But now, since we have the Truth Tracker studio all set up, like I literally have a studio in Baltimore, Maryland. If anybody needs any kind of audio reconstruction done, if you recorded a song in a bad studio and you need someone to fix it for you and make it just get that touch of where it could be ready for radio play, shoot me a comment, write me an email. Don't forget to check out the Truth Tracker Facebook group page. It's called Truth Tracker Truth Movement. You can find it on Facebook. And I just appreciate all of my my fellow conspirators and people in search of the truth and the facts. I'm still here, and I'll be here till the end. If World War III started tomorrow, I'd be out there watching the bombs drop, shooting it on video for you guys. So stay tuned.
Bye.
You got anything to say, Tess?
It's been
Catch y'all later. Have a great night.